Welcome. It's Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And I just love talking to other entrepreneurs so that I can learn from them and find out how they developed into the entrepreneurs that they are today. My guest today is the owner and president of the Betty Brigade, an expanding relocation and organizing company based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Betty Brigade helps busy professionals with moving, home staging, organizing, event planning, virtually anything that needs to be done if you're on the move, but you have no time to do it yourself. She maintains a focus that the company be a positive force in the community and has worked on joint projects with groups such as the Humane Society, Habitat for Humanity, and the Salvation Army. So it's a big Hot Women Rock welcome today to Sharon McRill. Hi, Sharon. How are you today?
Hi, Pat. It's great to be here.
Excellent. So before, I'm going to ask you a bit about how you transitioned into becoming an entrepreneur. But the first thing I want to say is at times in my busy life, and particularly if I've been moving house, I wish that I had a wife. You know, because my husband's really supportive, but you know, wives kind of know what you need to get done and just kind of do it. And when I learned about you and what you do, I thought, oh, that would have been my wife. Does that make sense to what you do?
It does. Actually, when I first started the business, I was in corporate life. And before I got downsized, me and a whole bunch of people got let go from my corporation. And before that happened, I kept thinking, if I just had somebody for this much time, like all I needed was a few hours a week to do the groceries or get the laundry finished or clean the house or simple things, you know, I just needed a little bit of help. And I kept thinking that. And so when I eventually launched the Betty Brigade, that was the intention.
Yeah.
And we have, of course, evolved over 14 years and do different things now, but that was the impetus.
Lovely. So just taking you back into your corporate life, did you go straight into a certain career when you left college, or what happened in the early stages?
Yes, I worked for a major bookstore chain in their corporate offices, and their corporate offices were based here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so I went from college to, well, I had been working in restaurants, but I left I made a commitment. I said, I am never going to work in another restaurant again.
Yeah.
And I haven't, which has been fantastic. But I do know I learned a lot about service from working in restaurants. But anyway, that was the point, was that, you know, I went straight from there, but I'd had a lot of experience working my way through school. My parents and grandparents both owned their own businesses. And so I grew up in a family that was constantly running business.
Yeah. So that entrepreneurship was a bit in the DNA there.
Yes. And, you know, I fought it for a long time, but here I am 14 years later.
So you were let go from the corporate world, and how did you decide what it was that you were going to do?
Well, while I was laying in a ball on the couch, feeling sorry for myself and watching Oprah, this is literally what happened. She was having one of those Live Your Best live shows, and it was a bunch of people who had started their own businesses. And I thought, well, I'm at least as smart as them. And so I created a business plan, and I ran it by some of my friends who were still in corporate life. And I said, would you use a company like this? And they were like, yes, we absolutely would. In fact, can we hire you right now? And so my first clients were my friends and my mom, and then it grew from there.
Yeah. So what was it initially? What was the first kind of service that you offered? Because I know it's really evolved, as all entrepreneurship does.
Well, we started with pet care and errands and just kind of organizing people's lives. So like going to the grocery store and picking up things, hiring handymen, and, you know, like getting things done around people's homes that they didn't have time to do themselves. So like maybe they had to run out of the house in a hurry one morning, but they had people coming for dinner that night. So tidy the house and then go buy food and put it in the refrigerator for that night's dinner.
Mm.
So stuff like that is where we started. And then really what evolved from the organizing and really kind of getting people's lives kind of straightened out was relocation. So we kept getting asked, well, I'm moving, will you help me move? Yeah. And so we took because what I did in corporate life was project management. And so I took my project management skills and applied it to a residential model. And so now what we do is we really focus more on relocating people, helping them sell their stuff, helping them figure out where everything goes, and if it won't sell, donating it, and all kinds of things like that. And then getting the house ready. And the average house we get ready for sale from nothing packed to ready to be on the market for real estate agents in about 10 days, which is very, very fast.
Very fast, yeah. So it makes such a huge difference to actually selling a property if it's not full of stuff.
Yes, yes. And we also have, as this has evolved, we've become known as the company you call when you have a hoarder house.
Yeah.
And so we have been working with hoarders now for about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. There's a lot of emotional and, mental health stuff around helping people to get rid of their things, isn't there?
Oh, holy moly, you have no idea.
As a therapist, I have some idea.
we had a lady, this was maybe about 3 months ago. We were there and we were organizing, and she was working right along with us, and she was the one who was kind of resistant. Her husband was like, let's get rid of everything, let's just move. And she was holding on to things. And so we were working with her and everything was going fine. And then we showed up on our second day, and she decided at 9 o'clock in the morning that she was going to bed, and she refused to work with us. And she just went to bed and shut the door, and she was our decision maker. So we had to leave. Oh. It was, that kind of stuff comes up, and people have things happen where they're having a breakdown, and I don't mean a mental breakdown. I mean an emotional breakdown, or just kind of a, like, I can't deal with this right now breakdown. But by the next day she was fine again. We had to have a talk about, hey, you're paying us for our time and that sort of thing. But the bottom line is that, when people do that, you can't force them. I mean, that's not what we're there to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And even for the average person, that when you're relocating, you realize how much stuff you've accumulated, and it's up in the loft, or it's in the garage, or you've stored things away in all sorts of places, and it's such an opportunity to get rid of it.
Yes, it is an opportunity, but I just want to remind your viewers that the 3 most stressful things are death, divorce, and moving. Yeah. And so when you work in a high stress area like moving, you come across they get triggered by the simplest things, and that it's not you. It's just they don't want to yell at their spouse. They're going to yell at the other person in the house.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
And the other thing is that if somebody else does your packing for you, and I've had the last 2 moves I've done, I've got the removers to pack for me, they can pack so much quicker because they're not looking at your stuff and going, oh, do you remember when we bought this? Or do you remember that? Do you remember that? They're just packing stuff, so they can do it twice the speed you can do it.
That's true. That's true. And it's also much less likely to break when you're working with a professional packer.
That's true as well. So this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo, talking to Sharon McRill, the owner and founder of the Betty Brigade. I should have asked you about the name the Betty Brigade, because the viewers in the UK might not get that. So explain the Betty Brigade.
So the name comes from and I like it's a whole bunch of iterations, but Betty is slang for a woman. So you are also Betty. And um, and it has gone through lots and lots of historical contexts, but the most recent ones are from the 1940s, that women during that, like the hard-boiled crime era, especially in those 40s movies with like Humphrey Bogart and things like that, they would call a woman a Betty. And then
Oh,
eventually in the 1980s, women who rode skateboards were referred to as skate Betties. And women now who ride professional bicycles or are professional bicyclists are called bike Betties.
okay. There you are. We know none of this in the UK, so it's a whole revelation there. So moving on, you were talking about the capabilities that you brought with you from your corporate life. And I think for a lot of women at midlife who are changing career or becoming entrepreneurs, it's about what they can use from what they've already learned into their entrepreneurship. So you've brought with you your project management. Is there anything else that you brought from your previous experience, your corporate life, into what you're doing now?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing was what I learned from my parents and grandparents about running a business, and that if you're not there, if you're an absentee owner, it's not going to ever run the way you want it to run, because people are never, if you hire someone, they're never going to run it exactly the way you would run it. That's
Yeah.
just, and if you're okay with that, then be good with it. But if you're not okay with it, then you have to be there and you have to make sure and shepherd things through. Um, so I learned that. I also learned a lot about customer service, and that taking care of the customer is paramount, but the customer is not always right. And that I will always back my staff before I back the customer, because I can lose a customer, but when I start losing 3 or 4 staff members, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah. And all of that service that you learnt then when you were waitressing, and you'd have learnt a lot about that real face-to-face customer
Yes,
service in that.
yes, you do.
Yeah. And so the other thing I'm interested in is that area of behavior, because as an entrepreneur, you have to take action, because if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen. So what are the sort of actions that you've taken to build your business?
Well, in the beginning, I gave myself a 1-year mark. So I wrote my business plan and I gave myself a year to at least break even. And that was kind of my line in the sand in the beginning. It was like, well, are we gonna, is this sustainable? Is this something that I can make a living at, or is it just a hobby? And what I discovered is that at the 11th month mark, I had to hire my first employee because I was too busy to handle everything myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I mean, I only hired her for 10 hours a week, but that 10 hours freed me up enough to be able to take care of the clients better.
Mm.
The other thing that I think is important is really knowing where you're going, knowing it, and your behavior dictates that. So if you're in a bad mood, you're going to spread that bad mood to your clients, to your staff, to your vendors, to all the people around you. So really be intentional about who you're being and how you're reacting to things. It's funny because when I started, I was much more, I don't want to say reactionary, but that's probably the best way to describe it. Now I'm it's not that I don't have the same feelings. I've learned how to address them differently. And so if a client is upset, it's let's find a solution together, and not, oh, I need to get out of here.
Yeah. And is this kind of behavior for doing this, is this something that you've learned for yourself, or have you had coaching? How have you learned to do this?
Oh, I have had tons of personal development and coaching. I 100% believe in coaching. And in the beginning, I felt like, oh, I can't afford coaching and I'm just going to, read books, which that's what I could afford in the beginning. And then as the business started to gain money and gain traction, then that's when I was able to bring on different consultants, and so now we bring in an outside person from some level of business, whether it's customer service or creating systems. And we have somebody coming in April who's talking to us about teamwork and leadership. And so every month, the whole team gets to experience a professional coach, and we have an extended staff meeting. And it really is great because everybody, the whole team, is getting that personal development, and not just me, so that it helps the conversation change within the company.
Absolutely, because if it's just you, then you're having to transmit that message rather than getting everybody hearing the same message at the same time. When I worked for a big government department, I used to have a day out every year. We didn't have a budget for it, so I just used to have everybody at my house. I've got a big conservatory. We used to have a barbecue, but we used to sit and do our strategy for the year. And instead of being, a bit of a chore and it was just something down to me, everybody was involved, so they knew what it was we were aiming for, and that was just so important.
Right, exactly. And so now we're starting to, so as we're strategizing and getting bigger, the next year, not 2017, but in 2018, the plan is to take the whole team off site to a retreat and have professional coaches there for a big chunk of the time while we're planning our next year. So we'll do that at the end in December, and we'll plan for the following year and really create where we want to go.
Excellent. So you and I met through an extreme form of networking. Otherwise, how do we sitting here in rural Hertfordshire meet up with you in Michigan? Has networking been important to you in building your business?
Oh, vastly important. And the majority of because we don't do any traditional advertising, so pretty much all of the referrals we get, all the work we get is through word of mouth or when I'm speaking. And so that's really how we get our business, is that our reputation is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got a top tip for a new midlife entrepreneur, what would be your best tip?
Well, I'm going to make it twofold.
Okay.
So the first thing is be clear, be intentional about where you want to go. So if you want a relaxing job, then choose a relaxing job. And if you bring stress into that, then you're bringing stress into your relaxing job. So be intentional about what direction you want to go in. And the twofold part of this is, if you want to make money at it, then be intentional about that as well. If it's just a hobby, then let it be a hobby and say, I'm only going to do this part-time, or I'm only going to do this 10 hours a week or whatever. And that's fine. But don't treat it like a full-blown business on the outside and then only put in 10 hours a week, because it will never make you the money that you want.
Absolutely. Great tips. Thank you. So anybody watching, if they want to find out more about what you do or more about you, or if they want to contact you, how do they do that?
Well, the simplest way is through our website. It's www.bettybrigade.com. Or you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Just Google Betty Brigade and it'll come right up.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sharon. This has been great fun, and you've given some really good tips. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Excellent. So to our viewers, thank you for watching. Keep watching out for more of these brilliant tips from all these experienced entrepreneurs. See you next time.